us to come, that and this. And we just saw if educated people with a broader outlook come to politics, how we can progress. We just witnessed from the speech of the Sri Jayadev garu. Please give them one more time big hand. Thank you, sir. And there is a couple of housekeeping items. One is, I know it is getting late, so especially who have, I request kindly who have kids and elder people, only maybe you can start getting your dinner and sit down at your table, so that while we are having the Q&A session, we can have lunch to, dinner too. Please don't rush. Please let who have kids and elders, let them get it first, and then maybe you can go table by table and get dinner, so that it won't be chaotic and while we are having the Q&A session. And meanwhile, we have small facilitation from NRI LATDP, Srimati Anita Kwankagaru. Please come and facilitate Srimati Galla Arunkumar. And her husband, Srihari Kwanka, is a dedicated NRI TDP volunteer who is right now in India. We miss him. I request Lata Almanchil garu to come and felicitate Srimati Padma garu. And then last but not least, our Guntur Tiger, Kishore Gerikpati garu, to felicitate another Guntur Tiger, Galla Jayadev garu. And as I mentioned before, all Telugu organizations came together to participate in this discussion or program, and there is Telugu Association of Southern California would like to come and felicitate Mr. Jayadev garu. Ram Kodkala, Secretary of Telugu Association of Southern California. And as I mentioned, there is Los Angeles Telugu Association who actively worked in this program and came here, all their executive committee members. If you don't mind, just stand up so that we can thank you. All your executive members, thank you. And also there is Tri-Valley Telugu Association. All your team Telugu members, if you can stand up, we really appreciate for it. Okay, while we give it to the question and answer, as I said, please go table by table so that we can have a discussion on the Q&A. Okay, let's start with Kishore.
Jayadev, can you explain what is a single window policy that Chandrababu Naidu and KCR is speaking? Because people who wants to invest in India, they don't know what the single window policy is, and if we be able to understand clearly, they might be able to put it.
Actually, I wish I could answer that question today, but I think that it's still being worked out by the government. It's not been clearly defined. It's a concept stage right now, and I'm expecting in the next 2 to 3 months that more clarity would come out of that. Hopefully by then we will be able to, I think, definitely it'll be published in all the websites and everything else, so you can go through that. But right now, it's at a concept stage. I wouldn't have more clarity than that.
Right, and Jayadev garu, thank you. And we'll go ahead with the questions. Jayadev garu. Thanks, Andy. సృష్టికి మూలమే మహిళ అండి. ఫస్ట్ మహిళలు అడిగిన క్వశ్చన్ తీసుకుందాం అనుకున్నాం. అండ్ చాలా మంది తెలిసే ఉంటుంది, మహిళని ఒక రైతుగా మన దేశంలో కన్సిడర్ చేయరు. సో ఇక్కడ వచ్చిన మహిళలు ఆమె చాలా అభాండం వేశారు. ఒక ఆయన తెగ చప్పట్లు కొట్టిస్తుందని. మహిళలు వచ్చిన వాళ్ళకి చప్పట్లు కొట్టారు. రాజకీయాల్లో మహిళలు పార్టిసిపేషన్ ఇస్ వెరీ వెరీ ఇంపార్టెంట్. వచ్చిన మహిళలందరికీ ఒక్కసారి మగవాళ్ళంగా మనం కూడా గట్టిగా చప్పట్లు కొడితే బాగుంటుంది. అండ్ శ్వేత గారు ఒక మంచి క్వశ్చన్ అడిగారండి. నాన్ మైగ్రేటరీ జాబ్స్ admission on that. So when you're talking about non-migratory jobs, how do you cut brain drain from people in India coming to US and other countries in the world? So how do you address that problem?
I think the concept of non-migratory jobs is, if you look at the state of Andhra Pradesh, 70% of our population is in the agriculture, is dependent on agriculture. Whereas only about 20 to 25% of the GDP comes from agriculture. That's not only a phenomenon in Andhra Pradesh, it's a phenomenon all over India. What China has been able to do, and I didn't, as you mentioned in your earlier remarks, I don't advocate everything China is doing, especially the pattern of development. But definitely one thing they've done successfully is that they've been able to move 400 million people in the last 30 years from being dependent on agriculture to being dependent on manufacturing and services. So that's the kind of task we have ahead of us. But if we look at where those jobs need to be created, I mean, you need to create jobs in the high-tech industry, software services industry, but more importantly, to move people out of agriculture who are not educated, which is the bulk of our people in agriculture. For people who are 10th class pass, 10th class fail also, you need to provide jobs in manufacturing. So the manufacturing has to go to where the population density of agricultural labor is the highest. That's very easy to map. If you map that in our state and in the country, and say people are, and offer incentives for manufacturing units to be set up in those places, that's how to create non-migratory jobs at the lower end. Now, if you talk about brain drain, again, you need to create an environment, you need to create opportunities for that talent to be able to be employed gainfully, and to be able to have access to the best resources in the world. And I think that's what Sri Chandrababu Naidu is committed to. That's what Sri Narendra Modi ji is also committed to. It's a big promise that's being made, but I'm very confident that we're going to move in that direction. I don't know whether it's going to take 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, but the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
Thank you. Thanks, Andy. Fantastic answer. A lot of people, there's enthusiasm here to understand whether they can contact Jayadev garu, what are the avenues, how do they contact, and whether Jayadev garu is following their questions and suggestions and questions.
Well, I'm setting up my office still in Guntur. I've established a small team there, but I've been a little bit preoccupied with the parliament sessions that have been going on to get it fully streamlined. In the meantime, you can send an email to me. My email address is jaygalla@gmail.com. I think you don't even need to write it down. jaygalla@gmail.com. I will definitely try to address as many as possible, but give me a couple of months and I'll have a team that is going to be reviewing these and will be able to ensure that they get responded in a much faster way.
Thank you. Jodamil garu vachinappudu manchi మాట అన్నారండి. ఆనందినే వాడివైతే అన్నదాతను ఆదుకో అన్నాడు. So that one sentence is sufficient. So farmers మీద మంచి క్వశ్చన్ అడిగారు. How do we make farming beneficial who really farm versus the businessman and middlemen who benefit greatly? How do we solve this problem? Prices, insurance, discounts for farmers, technology, cultivation. So in a holistic sense, what's the vision and mission for the issues?
You have to look at the quality of the inputs, the cost of the inputs, the techniques that are being used to ensure you get the highest yield. All of that, I think, is being studied. But more importantly, if you look at, I was studying Guntur district in particular, 25% of the global output of chilies is produces tobacco, maize, rice, many other, I mean, a huge variety of vegetables and fruits, even flowers, come from Guntur. But the farmers are continuously in distress. And that's mainly because there's absolutely no value addition taking place on that farm produce locally. I believe that if we invest heavily in food processing and other agri-processing manufacturing units, it'll have a dual effect of providing jobs on the one hand, and also providing a better avenue for farmers without removing what you call disintermediation of the value chain, which is, I think, what we've been able to demonstrate with Galla Foods in Chittoor district, where we've been able to remove 3 layers of middlemen when buying mangoes from farmers, and 50,000 farmers in Chittoor district have benefited because of that. So that disintermediation of the value chain by bringing value addition to the doorstep of farmers is very important.
Thank you. A lot of people here, at least in the audience itself, they're given a rough estimate, 20% of them work for Fortune 500 companies, and they're making sure that these companies are in the top 50 Fortune companies. So when they have that level of conviction, background, and a lot of leadership skills, and unfortunately they do not have the political financial background that you possess. So what is your advice to all these prospective TDP young leaders here, and who want to become leaders for 2019 and beyond, who don't have this sort of background and this level of background?
I didn't have a lot of financial resources when I started either. I think many of you are as well off as we were back then. Definitely we had a political legacy that I was able to build on. But in spite of all of those advantages, it took me 22 years to take my first step. So I'm not going to lie to you and say it's easy. It's a very tough road. You have to have that determination, just like in anything you do in life. And I think that first and foremost, you have to be able to offer the system something that they don't have, which I think all of you do possess those, the knowledge, the skills, the leadership capabilities to do that. But don't expect people to lay out a red carpet for you. Even after you make an entry, you're going to be faced with a lot of obstacles. It's a long road. You can ask my mother, after 25 years, it's not easy for her even now. I think that it's something that you have to just be determined to, and you can't be dissuaded by setbacks. You have to, it's not about how hard the quote is not how hard you fall, it's how high you bounce back.
And there's a follow-up question, Jayadev garu, on the election expenditure. Skyrocketing, and it doesn't stop here. No matter what country we take, it's all the case everywhere. So any idea what sort of measures should be taken in order to cut the expenditure and the political spectrum of space, at least in the elections expenditure?
I wish I had an answer to that. I really do. I'm being as candid as possible with all my answers. I thought at one stage that education would make a difference, that people would, once people are educated, that things would change. But to my horror, I realized that even postal ballots, which are largely government employees, mostly teachers at that, are also selling their votes. So obviously education is also not the answer. I think the only answer that I can think of is with high economic growth. We have to get to a stage where the scarcity mindset is removed from society. Today, the society in India still has that sense of scarcity, that if they don't, in the US, if there's a long line, to give you an example, it creates a little bit of inconvenience. But you know that at the end of your long wait, there's something waiting for you at the end of that line. Whereas in India, if you don't get to the front of the line, by the time you get to the point, there's nothing left. So I think that's the kind of mindset that we need to break out of. In order to break out of that, we need to remove scarcity from the economic system.
Awesome. Thank you. Jayadev, when we talk about Jayadev, he's almost becoming a synonym to jobs. Listen to Jayadev's all his speeches. You can go to YouTube, but also best way to go is prs.org. When somebody was asking, you told that Jayadev has asked 48 questions and he participated in 10 debates. How do you know that? You can go to prs.org, visit the website, and then you get all the information about what an MP is doing, what sort of questions he's asking, what sort of debates he's doing. Jobs గురించి ఒకసారి చెప్పాలంటే జయదేవ్ గారి స్పీచ్ వింటే మీరు ఒకసారి చూస్తారు 200 ఇంజనీరింగ్ జాబ్స్ కి వాళ్ళు they posted a notification in Guntur for the business. They've got 2,000 resumes for engineering jobs, and for workman jobs they had 2,000 workman jobs and they got only 200 resumes. Again, Jayadev has said that. I've listened to their speech as well. So Jayadev focuses more on unemployment gurinchi maatladeటప్పుడు we have to talk about underemployment also. On the same note, Prasad Vasireddy Garu is asking a question: what are you going to do to bring jobs to people in Andhra Pradesh?
Well, as I said also in one of my speeches, that we've created 10,000 jobs in Chittor district. We expect in the next 10 years that we're going to grow that to 100,000 jobs in Chittor district. Even if I was able to create 100,000 jobs in Guntur or in any other district for that matter, it's still a drop in the ocean. We need millions of jobs to be able to change the environment in India. In order to create millions of jobs, you need hundreds of organizations like Amar Raja. And how do we encourage the development of those organizations? Either foreign companies coming to invest in Andhra Pradesh, or other companies from around the country, large industrial groups from other parts of the country coming investing in Andhra Pradesh, creating our own entrepreneurs within Andhra Pradesh, which is very entrepreneurial culture. I think the ease of doing business is very important, but Andhra Pradesh is full of enormous human capital. It's full of great physical resources. I think financial resources is lacking, and an environment to encourage business is what we're trying to create. And if all of this comes together, definitely we'll be able to achieve our goals.
Awesome. Thank you. A lot of interest about Tenali, Guntur, Vijayawada, almost whole of AP, and also Repalle. Especially development, any specific plans of development of Tenali, Guntur, Vijayawada, Repalle. Srikiran Garu and Prasad Vasireddy Garu is asking any specific plans that you've designed on this, especially metro trains. Sorry.
Well, if you have been following Srinara Chandrababu Naidu Garu's Facebook page or Telugu Party Facebook page, I think many statements and many vision statements and statements of intent have been published. So there's a lot of things that are being planned. District by district, plans are being made. I'm on the State Capital Development and Design Committee, so I'm going to be playing an important role in this particular area that you're talking about. The new State Capital Region will include all these areas, most of these areas. I'm not on the selection committee, so I wouldn't be able to provide clarity on exactly where the capital is coming up. But once that is known, I think we want to connect all the towns that are in the State Capital Region, which will include Vijayawada, Guntur, Tenali, Mangalgiri, and maybe some others as well. And already, if you look at the VGTM Development Authority, it's larger in size than the HMDA, which is the Hyderabad Municipal Development Authority. So in terms of size, it's already larger than what Hyderabad is. If that area can be developed, definitely it can rival Hyderabad one day. And I think that, specifically what's going on to each of these towns is yet to be determined. From what I can tell, Guntur is going to be an educational hub, a medical hub, also a food processing hub. There's a textile that's coming up in textile park that's coming up in Mangalgiri. There's going to be an IT cluster that's going to come up in Nusvidu. So like that, these are thought that are being considered, nothing's been finalized. Definitely, Sri Chandrababu Naidu's got his vision, and with the support of Modi ji's government from the center, which is very critical for us to realize all these plans. It's definitely, things are aligning properly, the stars are aligning, and hopefully we're going to be able to convert that into something great.
Thank you. So, South Africa has 3 capitals now. Whether you know that or not, South Africa has got 3 capitals: legislative, executive capital, and the judiciary capital. It's officially announced. So, any plans of announcing multiple capitals? Because the Rayalaseema would feel.
I think it's not the question of capitals. Definitely, there is thought about having a high court in a different city than the capital, but each district, a development plan is being created. So it's not about 3 capitals or 4 capitals. The fact that capital is coming up in Guntur Vijayawada area doesn't mean everything's going to come up only in Guntur Vijayawada area. They're looking at Vizag, Tirupati, and Guntur Vijayawada all being mega cities, 14 smart cities with district-specific development plans for each district. So definitely we're looking at a decentralized development model. And if you look at the concept for the capital city, we want to make it clean, we want to make it green and efficient, we want to make it human scale, which is good for motorists, not only for motorists, but also for pedestrians and cyclists. And we want to do it in a manner that can cater to all segments of society: low income, medium income, high income. We're looking at planning for all of that. We want to make it slum-free. And it's going to definitely be something that we can be really proud of. Whether we can achieve that, I mean, we want the vision for our Chief Minister has is to ensure that the capital is shifted to the new capital within the next 3 to 4 years. That doesn't mean that the capital will be ready in all respects, but government machinery will move within that period of time, and the development will continue. And I think in the next, if you look at Hyderabad, when I first moved to Hyderabad in 1994, there wasn't really much in Hyderabad either. From 94 till 2014, 20 years is what it's taken to get to this stage. And I believe that that's the kind of time period we'll have to be looking at, maybe 10, 15, 20 years, to get to a final stage of where we can say that we're where we need to be. But it's going to start immediately. We're not going to wait.
Wonderful. So, Jayadev has also expressed his concern in Parliament. He said that less than 3% of land in our country is used for industries. So there are some questions based on what sort of industries we are looking at. One of the questions is from Saikaran Garu and Prasad Vazred again. So, plan for solar projects, solar industries, there's a lot of potential growth in that. What's any sort of vision on the solar projects in the
If you look at Germany, is one example that I can give you. 40% of Germany's power is generated through solar. And this is a very industrialized economy with heavy factories, heavy machinery, huge power user. 40% of their power is generated through solar power. And the bulk of that solar power is generated on the rooftop of people's homes. They're not large solar parks that have been established in Germany, but every home has solar panels on their roof. So yes, we're looking at large solar parks, but we're also looking at how do we get every home to be a power generator.
Thank you. And just for your information, the Raman Magsaysay awardee who has brought in solar power to 1.2 lakh households in Karnataka is also from India. We have to be really proud of Harish Hande, the Raman Magsaysay awardee. Is from India, and he's got a lot of vision on the solar side of it. And we've got questions on education. So how do we reduce the gap between educational institutions and industry? The industry needs something, the education system is talking about something. How do we bridge this gap? How do we orient our education in that fashion? Hari Gopu, where I get the question.
Well, I think this is a problem that even the United States is facing today. Education is not providing the skills necessary by industry and by business in general. So my personal feeling is that there's too much importance on knowledge and not enough importance on skills. knowledge has a shelf life, but skills last you for a lifetime. And I think that education has to focus more on skills rather than just on knowledge.
Fascinating answer. ఒక్కసారి ఇంత చప్పగా ఉంటే మాత్రం ఇప్పుడు నార్త్ ఇండియా విజిల్ ఎక్కువ వేస్తారు కానీ తెలుగు వాళ్ళు చప్పట్లు కొడితే ఎక్కడ ఒక్క చప్పట్లు లేదు ఏమి లేదు అంత మంచి ఆన్సర్ చెప్తాంటే. And we shouldn't forget that he's a lawmaker. It's directly impacting his thinking. We definitely can influence his thought process. And also importantly, one thing that we have to talk about Jayadev Garu is he talks about social fabric in I don't know whether you remember all this, but anyway. So he talks about social fabric and the ethics of our culture in India. So when we talk about it as NRIs also, we are part of the growth of India. And మనం సపోర్ట్ కొట్టుకోవాల్సిన విషయం ఏంటంటే లార్జెస్ట్ రెమిటెన్సెస్ ఇన్ ద వరల్డ్ ఈజ్ డన్ బై ఇండియన్స్. వాళ్ళ తల్లిదండ్రులకి వాళ్ళ ఎక్స్టెండెడ్ ఫ్యామిలీకి వాళ్ళందరికీ మన ఇండియన్స్ ఆర్ ద లార్జెస్ట్ నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ రెమిటెన్సెస్ కమింగ్ ఫ్రమ్ ఎనీ కంట్రీ by NRIs is Indians. Then comes China. We should be really proud of it. We really extend our support to our families and also extend families.
Let me just interrupt you on that. And most of those remittances, by the way, come from the labor class, not from doctors, not from engineers, but from people who are working as construction labor in the Middle East and in Africa and other places like that. So most, I would say probably 70 to 80% of the remittances come from that type of NRI.
Wonderful, wonderful. And one of the biggest problem is that we don't have entrepreneurial programs for youth. So youth don't have direction. And are we in the state of Andhra Pradesh planning to have some sort of entrepreneurial programs? So this question was asked by Raja Surya Devaragar. So the question is, what sort of entrepreneurial programs are we designing in the state of Andhra Pradesh so that we can motivate youth towards becoming entrepreneurs?
I wouldn't have enough clarity to answer that question right now. The state government is currently working on a number of different programs to encourage entrepreneurship. Both the state government and the central government are setting up funds to provide funding for startups. But beyond that, they've not come out with clear-cut plans for me to be able to share them with you at this point.
So NRI investment, thank you. NRI investment, a couple of questions. And Chakri garu adigaru, Venkat Kotta garu adigaru. What are the opportunities for NRIs to invest in AP? Are you seeing any avenues upfront in your mind? First thing. Second thing, what are the sources of information where NRIs can go, browse and look for areas, investment areas in Andhra Pradesh?
Well, again, it's sounding like a bad response to keep repeating the same thing. But we're looking at a number of, many of the plans on how to develop these smart cities and mega cities. There's going to be a number of public-private partnership projects coming up in many different areas of different sizes. So whether it's small ticket, medium ticket, large ticket projects, there's going to be various size projects that are going to be announced, and tenders will be called for participating in those projects. Secondly, in Andhra Pradesh also, with the type of tax incentive package that's being expected, there's going to be a huge incentive to invest in Andhra Pradesh because you're looking at excise duty exemption, income tax exemption, sales tax exemptions, the state sales tax exemption and central sales tax exemption, which turns out to be significant. I think almost 15 to 20% reduction in cost will be taking place, which means that you're going to be much more competitive in the market than if you set up similar type of industries in states that don't have these incentives. Now, if this actually comes through, and I'm hoping that we're all crossing our fingers and hoping that it will, it's going to be a huge benefit to anybody coming to invest in Andhra Pradesh.
Wonderful. Thank you. And women issues midandi 2012 Delhi gang rape jarigaka we have got the Nirbhaya Act, and after 1 year of Nirbhaya's Act, research was done in Andhra Pradesh, and 900 cases of Nirbhaya cases were filed on various different people. And to our surprise, more than 95% people are already outside on bail and then roaming outside. So on women issues and on women safety, security, what are the plans? Is there anything that we are thinking of? A women cell or something
think on this subject, as Indians, we need to really be feeling quite ashamed of our track record. The Prime Minister has also said very clearly in his address to Parliament and to the nation that he's tired of hearing excuses for this bad behavior. That there are no more excuses, we have to take action. But the only silver lining that I can see in the whole thing is that even though incidents seem to be going up, it's actually the reporting of incidents that are going up. I believe that the situation has been very bad for a very long time, and it's only coming to light today. And at least in some respect, that's a positive sign. At least we're starting to acknowledge that the problem exists, and we're starting to take steps. But it's too little, too late, and we need to do a lot more, a lot faster.
Thank you so much. And there's another question on media. What's the vision about putting controls on media? This is making people insensitive to suffering, and also media, and the paid media is almost taking things in the wrong direction in the country right now.
Yeah, I think freedom of speech, definitely. Freedom of the press is very important. But in India today, we also have a situation where there needs to be a lot of cleaning up in the media industry itself. I think that there's a lot of yellow journalism that's taking place, a lot of reporting without any kind of fact-checking that takes place, a lot of incorrect reporting. That also needs to be addressed. Freedom of press doesn't mean you can say whatever you want, whether it's true or not. I think there needs to be enough legislation in place to both provide the freedom of press as well as ensure there's accountability in press. And accountability, not only in media, but I think in many fields, whether it's medicine or law, or the judiciary or politics, there's no accountability today. And we need to focus more on accountability.
Thank you. And there seems to be a burning problem here, and a lot of people are asking questions. I've culminated them into one single point here. So the burning question here is, when is Jagan going to jail? Yes, this is the question that I've got almost from 6 or 7 people.
Hopefully never.
All right. So the next question here is from Samir Bhavani Patla. And the question regarding Jagan was asked by Raju, Satish, Gundapaneni garu, and all of that, and many other people have culminated that into one question. So, research and focus in AP. That's another question from Samir Bhavani Patla. We need good R&D in India. I'd like to see AP as a good research center, especially with talent and brain power. We have any plans to focus on it? If not, I would like to bring this up to your notice.
Actually, this is something that we have to look at national level, not only in one state. If you look at any country that has great research and development, there's an ecosystem that promotes it. There's an ecosystem that involves industry, universities, defense, central scientific and industrial research organizations all come together and have free access to what's happening, to go across these different verticals, to be able to actually come up with something. Most of the great innovations in the United States even start with defense labs and the defense industry, and then go into more commercial applications. So today in India, each one of these is an island. There's no cooperation between them. And I think that's the first thing we need to do, is to create that ecosystem.
Thank you. And Suresh Ediga from New Jersey has sent me a question. The question is about 421 GO 421 would help farmers who are committing suicides, and their children can be sent to school, and then the farmer's family will be incentivized immediately. 421 GO, government order, that is passed in 2004. So Suresh Ediga's question is, the enforcement of that GO is not happening properly. We want to bring to your attention that since this is related to farmers and the farmers who are committing suicides, how do they send their kids? The 421 GO clearly mentions that farmer who has committed suicide, his kids will be helped to go to school, and also the family will be given some sort of incentives and support.
Well, I need to study that a little bit more in detail before I can comment on it, but I certainly hope that doesn't encourage more suicides.
Absolutely, yeah. He mentioned that point as well. So I didn't bring it up. He said that when we bring up this point, it also brings up another aspect that we should really be sensitive about. Thank you. And we are almost coming to the close of questions. And if you have any other questions, if you feel that your questions are not answered, please let us know real quick. We have a hard stop at 10 o'clock, so we'll wrapping it up at 9:45 essentially. There's a big problem that was mentioned about. So as an MD of Amar Raja Batteries and also as an MP in the Parliament and a lawmaker, how are you slicing your time both as an industrialist and also as a person as a lawmaker?
With great difficulty. But it's too early right now. I think definitely I haven't got into the groove of saying that I'm very comfortable doing both two full-time jobs yet. But I'm confident that in the next few months I should be able to get there. It's not easy, but I think with the right teams in place, with the right people to support me, and with the right systems and processes, definitely possible.
Awesome, thank you. I know the matter is in subsidies, but how about voting right for NRIs? Do we need a voting right in India?
Yes.
India.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Or ballot, but we need a voting right. So what's your take on that? Would you make a private question, especially on this, for speeding up this process of NRI voting that we've been waiting for ages now? So essentially, when we talk about the topic of largest remittances as NRIs, we certainly deserve it. We pay the property taxes. We do everything possible for the nation. And we, having passports in hand, which says that we are an Indian citizen, we certainly need a voting right.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Well, as a former NRI myself, I certainly support that. And I'll do whatever I can to ensure that it happens.
Thank you. Oh my God, okay.
As long as you don't have a vote in any other country, you should have a vote in India.
Absolutely, yes. So, there seems to be a burning problem here as well. How many times would you get to meet Prince Mahesh Babu in a year, just for the sake of people, making people laugh? So, how many times you get to meet Prince Mahesh Babu in a year? Of course, a lawmaker.
Whenever I want.
So, alright, we have come to a close of questions and yeah. Okay. What are your thoughts about conflict of interest? Do you plan to quit business after being elected as people's representative? If you have to choose between business and interest of people, what will you choose?
I really don't see any conflict of interest today. The day that I do, definitely I'll decide to work for the people instead of for business.
Alright, so one other question, Andy. What is the security that we provide for NRIs with their investments, especially real estate, lands and housing?
Well, I would encourage you to make investments that create wealth for the nation and not only create assets for yourself. So my first answer would be, look at investing in India in a way that creates wealth for you and the nation and for the people of the nation, rather than just investing blindly in real estate. But getting more to the point on real estate assets, today the situation is quite difficult. If you're an absentee landlord, it's quite difficult to protect your property unless you have people who can do it for you.
Thank you. And the question here is, whenever there is some announcement about SEZs, industries, metro development, these big realtors and proxy of politicians grab the land around these places and they'll not allow small investors to get any. If you control real estate and land prices, it would help small investors a lot. Do you have any such plans to control real estate mafia?
It's a very important point. I'll definitely study it more. I'm not in a position today to be able to answer that. I'm not in the real estate business. I never have been, and I don't know enough about it to be able to answer that. And I think that I need to study that a little bit more.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody? Did I leave anybody? Venkat Ala has asked a question. Venkat Gar had a question. How is that the same land is being registered again and again and again, which doesn't exist in any other country in the world?
Corruption is definitely a big problem in India, and I think corruption has become so endemic. The entire society is corrupt. It's not one segment of society. It's not only politicians, it's not only people in business, it's not only the judiciary, it's not only the police, it's not only teachers. Every section of society is corrupt today in India. And something drastic has to happen to make that change happen. Prime Minister Modi is talking a lot about it. I have a lot of hope that he's going to be able to make that happen. And the coming years will tell.
And another question. Law enforcement agencies are not independent. They're completely tied to politics, as you understand. So, the formation of new state, any plans of strengthening the loci and also independently giving this independence to these law enforcement agencies? Otherwise, the same people, corrupt people, will start claiming that this is a political matter.
Well, actually, I have a counter view to that. I think there's too much power in the hands of police and too much power in the hands of politicians. And that's the reason why we have criminalization in both of these areas. The Indian Penal Act, which was developed during the British period, was developed to control the population. It was a colonial act. It was never in vogue even in the United Kingdom. It was a penal code that was designed to control the natives of the colonies. And that's the penal code we live with even today. So until that changes and we reduce the power in hands of police and we reduce the power in hands of politicians, criminalization will continue. If you reduce the power, criminals won't have an incentive to enter those arenas.
You cannot support what sir. And lawmakers saying this. Alright, so Jawahar, I think I missed your question. If you can repeat it one more time, I can take it up. So Jawahar, you want to try? Yeah. I can do one last time. Sir, Jayadev Gallagher, lawmaker, Chairman, the question again. Inta manchiga unnara gelustarantara next time ani. Awesome. So I think there's fascination towards this man, and I can promise and then say that I've been listening to his speeches and also I follow each of his questions and also his debates. Phenomenal work. Thank you for being a lawmaker, and thank you for taking this task of becoming a lawmaker in that hostile environment, and also in the existing political spectrum of place where the state has been split recently. And one last time, if you can, that's the only way we can endorse that the person has put a lot of effort answering all the questions. Jayadev Gallagher. One last time, Jayadev Gallagher. You don't have to stop it. You know, we encourage such lawmakers will again and again get to see good people in politics. And most importantly, we have to re-register the record that the topic of decriminalization of politics that is mentioning about. So such are the lawmakers. We're slowly seeing transformation of politics is happening, and bad politics towards good politics is definitely a possibility. And we urge Galla Jayadev to talk his heart. There are so many things that you talk about which is definitely not an NI would really talk about, but you take the courage, you take the compassion, passion, and also all your efforts in Parliament is widely resonating in the public. Thank you so much.
One last question on demand, public demand. ఉచిత పథకాలు ప్రతిసారి గవర్నమెంట్ ఫామ్ అయినప్పుడు ఎలా పెరిగిపోతున్నాయి అనేది మన కంప్లైంట్ అంతే కదా, అది ఎలా దాన్ని తగ్గించగలరు అనేది ఒక లాస్ట్ క్వశ్చన్.
See, it's a fine balancing act that needs to be done by any government. when 40% of our population is below poverty level, we can't ignore that section of society. We need to provide some schemes to alleviate that poverty. But the only thing that can eradicate it, as I was saying earlier, is high economic growth. So unless we are growing our GDP growth at 7 to 9% as a country, and our state has always been growing at 12 to 14% when the country is growing at 7 to 9%. That's the only way we're going to be able to eradicate poverty. And until we eradicate poverty, these type of social measures are absolutely critical and required. But we need to make sure that they don't go. I think that my belief is that if they're contained to 25% of the expenditure in a budget year, definitely possible to do it in a financially manageable way. But when they cross 25% is when we hit the danger zone. And that's what we've been doing in the last few years.
Thank you. And then lastly, vote of thanks by Vapsi Geripati Garu and Suresh Ambati Garu.
చాలా తక్కువ సమయం ఉన్నా కానీ మన కోసం కేటాయించి మన దగ్గరికి వచ్చి ఉన్న 4 hours టైం స్పెండ్ చేస్తున్న గల్లా జయదేవ్ గారికి, ప్రతి ఒక్కరిని మిమ్మల్ని కలిసిన జయదేవ్ గారికి, కరెంట్ ఎంపీ అయ్యాడు కూడా మనం చాలా కృతజ్ఞతలు చేసుకుంటాం. అలాగే గల్లా అరుణ్ కుమార్ గారికి, గల్లా పద్మ గారికి కృతజ్ఞతలు. ఈ కార్యక్రమాన్ని దిగ్విజయంగా జరిపించడానికి మాకు బ్యాక్ నుంచి సపోర్ట్ చేసిన రామకృష్ణ గారు, నాదెండ్ల నాగమణి నాదెండ్ల గారికి కృతజ్ఞతలు. అలాగే ఆలపాటి రవీంద్ర గారికి, బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ నుండి ఎన్ఆర్ఐ టీడీపీఎల్ఏ నిపుణులు ప్రోత్సహించి వచ్చిన ఆలపాటి వెంకట్ అండ్ ఆలపాటి రవీంద్ర గారికి కృతజ్ఞతలు అండి. అలాగే ఈ ప్రోగ్రామ్, ఈ 4 hours ప్రోగ్రామ్ కి గత 2 months నుంచి కష్టపడుతున్న మన ఎన్ఆర్ఐ టీడీపీ కోర్ కమిటీ సభ్యులు మధు బోడపాటి, కృష్ణ మల్లిన, అంబటి సురేష్, శ్రీహరి కొంక, కిషోర్ గరికపాటికి మనం ఎంతో రుణపడి ఉన్నాం. ఎందుకంటే ప్రతిరోజు దే హ్యావ్ మీటింగ్ అబౌట్ దిస్ వన్. ప్రతిరోజు ఆల్మోస్ట్ ఫర్ ద లాస్ట్ 2 months జస్ట్ ఫర్ దిస్ 4-hour మీటింగ్ దే కండక్టెడ్ మీటింగ్ ఎవ్రీడే ఆల్మోస్ట్. అట్లాగే ఎంతో మంది బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ లో ఉండి దీనికి ఈ సభని దిగ్విజయం ఎంత గ్రాండ్ సక్సెస్ లో లాస్ ఏంజల్స్ లో 1 పొలిటికల్ ఈవెంట్ ఇట్లా జరగడానికి కృషి చేసిన ఎంతో మందికి చాలా కృతజ్ఞతలు అండి. అలాగే ఇప్పుడు గత 4 hours నుంచి చిన్నపిల్లలతో కూడా వచ్చి కదలకుండా కూర్చుని ఫుడ్ ఓపెన్ చేసినప్పుడు వెళ్ళిన తల్లులకి, పిల్లలకి అందరికీ చాలా కృతజ్ఞతలు. మీరు ఎంతో వాల్యుబుల్ సమయమైన వీకెండ్ ని మా కోసం కేటాయించినందుకు ఇట్లాగే ఫ్యూచర్ లో ఎన్నో జరగాలని ఆశిస్తూ చాలా కృతజ్ఞతలు తెలియజేస్తామండి. అలాగే వన్ మోర్ టైం గల్లా జయదేవ్ గారు కృతజ్ఞతతో మనకి ఆన్సర్ చేసిన ఈ నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ ఆల్మోస్ట్ 50 questions జయదేవ్ గారిని జాగ్రత్తగా తీసుకోవాలనుకుంటున్నామండి. These are suggestions, not the questions. So much thankful for coming here. Jai India, Jai Telugu Desam, Jai Jayadev, Jai Chandrababu Naidu. Jai India, Jai India. Thank you so much for coming and please have a dinner.
Aqui, don't have a